Welcome to the Jali Podcast. I'm your host, Melyssa Barrett. This podcast is for those who are interested in the conversation around equity, diversity, and inclusion. Each week, I'll be interviewing a guest who has something special to share or is actively part of building solutions in the space. Let's get started. I am excited this week again. Benita is here with me, and many of you know she's come to the Jali Podcast before. She has an episode. We will link that episode as well because we talked a lot about overwhelm and how to kind of get back on track and eliminate that burnout from your life. Not only eliminate it, but really recognize it before you get to it. But today I'm excited to talk to her about her new book called The Sustainable CEO. And I love how you have really, focused on unlocking the divine overflow sequence, which is amazing to me because I think, as you go through, especially as a founder and CEO, you start to realize how much control you have of designing the life that you want. And I hope that many people, especially CEOs, become, more spiritual in their journey so that they're fully aligned with their purpose. And so I love the book and what you're doing here. I think the cover is like showing you're pouring into something else for sure.
Yeah.
And so you want to keep your cup full.
Absolutely.
So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Melyssa. It's always a joy, a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for the invitation back. So
Absolutely.
I'm so grateful for you and for sharing your platform with me to allow me to talk about yes, this latest project of the Sustainable CEO, which is it's something that I'm still unpacking myself, to be honest with you. So we're kind of unpacking together here. So I just thank you for the opportunity for this dialogue.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Especially, and I think, specifically for people of color, and I'll say it this way. I mean, since the beginning of the year, I've had so many friends come up to me and the level of discouragement,
Mhm.
depression,
Yes,
mental health. I mean, all of those kind of huge things that weigh on you to
yeah,
figure out how do I continue to move forward? Whether you're a CEO or not, you're trying to
yes,
make sure that you have the life that you want. Um,
absolutely.
so I'm excited for you to talk a little bit about, maybe your own story on, what inspired you to write Sustainable CEO and how why you think like right now is the right
At the
message.
time.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I will say, there's a saying out here now that everybody's using, life be life and
Yeah.
life be life and right. So, and I'm sure, like you said, CEOs, founders, leaders, entrepreneurs, moms, dads, you name it, everybody, feels that the tension and the frustration, the friction, where when life is lifing, right? And so, and I think that's just something that we all, no matter what level of leadership we're in, we're all feeling it right now. We're feeling the crunch, the pinch, if you will, the strain, the heaviness. I don't know about your 2025, but my 2025 was just almost like, a sequel to 2024, so to speak. It was it's like one continuum. There was a lot that went on in my life in 2024. A lot of things that I went through, personally, and it's just weighty. It was very weighty, very weighty, very stressful. And I believe, the economy in general just felt really weighty. A lot of things changed, a lot of political agendas and things like that changed, and so we just found ourselves kind of being tossed to and fro, if you will. And so I just feel like that's a part of probably why God allowed this release. This was really a divine download for me. This wasn't something that I had planned to release or anything. I didn't it wasn't even created. It wasn't even something that I was thought about, to do. However, I'm in this work of self-care, and so
Mhm.
being in the work of self-care, I'm always looking for ways that we can better ourselves, ways that we can help reduce the anxiety and the stressors of life, the burnout and the exhaustion and the fatigue and things like that. We see it from athletes all the way to doctors, right? All the way. It doesn't matter your profession, doesn't matter if you're homeschooling mom, things like that. We all feel a certain level and degree of pressure and stressors and things like that. And so how we go through life and we kind of challenge those things and be able to mitigate them is important. And so I'm always open to, just kind of uh, tapping in and really hearing from God about ways that we can, hopefully combat some of the things that are going on. And so
Yeah.
when I wrote the I had some notes really. It was just started as like a notebook. I'm always journaling. I'm always writing things down. That's just one of my ways that I'm able to relieve, stress and things like that. Get things off of my mind. Is just to jot them down on paper. So here's a tip: if you're not journaling, you're missing out.
Yes. No, it's powerful.
If you're not journaling, you're missing out. Please, please grab a pen, grab a notepad, grab your iPad, whatever, your phone, and texting your phone, whatever you need to do. But because mental load is a lot. It's a real thing. The mental
I
load.
feel like it takes the noise out of your head.
Oh yes, absolutely. It does. It does. And it brings a lot of clarity just to be able to see something written down on paper, And so that's kind of how it started. I just wasn't taking really there was some things that had popped up in my spirit about really about stewardship, to be
Okay.
honest with you. That was the
Yeah.
word, that was a buzzword that came, and you'll see that interwoven in throughout the book. It was really about stewardship, and God was really challenging me on what it means to be a good steward.
Okay. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it wasn't as this is kind of yeah, it's a different angle, like you said, different angle, different approach. But it's like, what does it really mean to be a good steward
Yeah.
over what God has given? And then it went a little bit deeper, and it was like, because we don't own anything.
Right.
We don't own it. We're all here working as unto God. We don't own it, and so it's not ours to control. And then the word control came up. So I'm starting to jot all these things and make the connections. And so I really felt in my spirit that God was saying that He wanted us, especially those that are in, kingdom businesses, leadership, things like that, marketplace, kingdom marketplace. He wanted us to really embody or understand the difference between ownership and stewardship,
Mm.
and that a lot of us have been, owning what we should be stewarding. A lot of us have been, trying to control or feeling like we're controlling things that, it's really not up to us to control, but more of it's up to us to manage.
Yeah.
Right. To
Yeah.
manage, not to really control, but to manage what we have. And then that's the foundation of being a good steward. So that's kind of how it all began, really.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and the title alone
Mm.
is intriguing. So, when
Yeah.
you maybe talk a little bit about when you say unlocking the divine overflow sequence, like what
Yes.
does that mean?
Yes. All of it again was just a download. Even the sustainable CEO, which is the name just kind of resonated and popped in my spirit. But the divine overflow sequence is really a blueprint for receiving overflow. A lot of us may be operating on or seeing diminishing returns in business and can't figure out why. Or you may be experiencing a lot of bottlenecks in business, things like that, and you can't quite figure out what's going on. You do the the 3 year and the 5 year financial plan forecasting and things like that. We have it all, have it all. We've got our P&L statements and we've got all of these things. But when it comes down to it, you may be experiencing diminishing returns and you don't understand why that is. And it's really because of this tug of war between ownership and stewardship, you know.
Mhm.
And so God revealed that there is a way, there's a more excellent way for us to really sustain the flow, you know, of resources, sustain the flow of profitability, sustain the flow of increase, you know, in your business. How I envision that is that you know, when you tapped into a flow, you think about a river or, you know, something like that that's always flowing, a stream that's always flowing. That's just it. It's always flowing. There's never a point in time where that river is not flowing, right? There's never a point in time where that stream is not flowing. So the idea is to tap into a rhythm of resources and divine overflow so that you never have to run out.
I love it.
And that's what, yeah, and that's what the sustainable CEO is really all about. It's coming from this place where the resources and the contacts and the networks and you know, the profit margins and things like that never run out. Imagine that.
Yes. I can
Imagine the
imagine.
world,
I can
right? You know,
imagine.
exactly. You know, but it's a real thing. And so the Bible speaks about it often that in times of famine, there were certain ones that were able to be to go through that process without so much as even, you know, an issue, because they were so well sustained during that time of famine. So no matter what's going on in the world, no matter what's happening, you know, we hear it in the economy, loss of this, loss of that, you know, all the losses and stuff. But that, for the sustainable CEO, that does not have to be your case.
Yeah.
And so that's what this book is really, it's a reveal of how to tap into that flow. And there is a blueprint called the Divine Overflow Sequence. And it's like a 7-step process that will help lead anyone really who takes advantage of it into to tap into the divine flow of heaven's resources.
Well, and I want to ask you about that framework in just a second, but I wanted to maybe, I mean, one of the things I loved is that you talk about kind of alignment as the foundation for leadership.
Oh yeah.
And so, you know, what does true alignment look like for a
Mhm.
CEO or a leader, and how do they know when they've lost it?
Mm, very good question. Very good. You know, and I believe this, I really do. I believe that every leader starts off in alignment.
Hmm.
I truly believe that. I believe, you know, when you have that vision, you know, and you've got that mandate, you know, or that sense of responsibility, you know, every leader starts off in alignment. You're clear on your goals, you're clear on your vision, you know what it is that you've been, you know, shown, and you know what you're going for. But somewhere along the lines, you know, somewhere along the way, life happens. You know, things start to the
Yeah.
hustle and bustle of it all.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, you know, and I believe that's what happens. And so leaders get out of alignment. There's a misalignment that occurred somewhere along the way, and it's starting to impact what's going on, you know, in your company or structure or whatever the case may be. And so but true alignment is really that heart posture. It's really why you got in it in the first place, right?
Hmm.
It's going back to, you know, the true calling, the true nature, if you will, of anyone, especially kingdom or faith driven businesses. What was the real reason why, you know, you started that business or that company or you took that position in the first place, and getting back to that, because true alignment is about having that perspective and knowing your why and owning your why, um and getting back to that if you somehow are misaligned at this point in time. And so alignment is key in order to tap into the overflow and sustain, right? It's what we're talking about, being able to sustain no matter what's going on, no matter what's happening in the world. um it's all about alignment. That is the first step, is that heart posture.
Yeah. Oh, of the heart posture. Yes, I
Yeah.
love that term as you
Yes.
were talking through it. So,
Yeah.
so maybe can you walk us through like the core pillars of
Yeah.
the sustainable CEO framework?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the beginning of the book, you'll see that we're really focusing on three things, and one of them happens to be alignment. It's alignment before it's celebration. Um, you're not in it for the money and the riches and all these things like that. That is a nice byproduct, if you will. But it comes from you being intentional about your why and being intentional about you aligning with God's vision and your identity in Christ, right? And what does that really mean? And why are you here? Like, what is the work that you're put here to do? Like, what is your purpose and things like that? So really, it's alignment, and we talk about identity in the book and things like that. And then it's also from there it talks about provision, but really provision as an act of obedience, right? So not just provision just for the sake of having, being provided for and things like that, but really it comes from being positioned, in obedience. Understanding that obedience precedes provision, if you will. And so going back to, what did God tell you? Why are you doing it? What did he tell you? And following through on the instructions, like what he told you out of obedience. And then that's where the provision comes in. And then it's about, really having strategy, but getting it through divine revelation. you know so aside from the strategic business plans, and aside from the forecasting and all the things that we do in business, like what are the heaven downloads that you're getting, right? What are the divine insights that you're getting? Because sometimes the market may tell you to do something this way, but it's totally not the way that God is saying for you to go. And so there may be you having to kind of go against the grain a little bit of what may seem rational, what may seem, logical to do, but that divine strategy will give you exactly what to do. And it just may be unorthodox. It may be unorthodox. And so do you have that? Is that a part of your team building strategy, right? To know or have that awareness, that knowing when you need to do something that may seem a little bit unorthodox. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really
Yeah.
good. I
Yeah.
think
So
yeah, go ahead, keep going.
no, I was just gonna say that is really kind of laying the foundation
Yeah,
for how you align. It's about alignment. I think it's on the book there. It's about alignment. It's about leadership, and it's about legacy. So
yeah.
those three things. Yeah.
I love that. Well, and it's so nice to see a book that weaves in that spiritual framework with, kind of the business
Yeah.
aspects.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what I mean, I really appreciated all of the research that you did to
Mhm.
provide real life examples
Yeah.
of businesses that really unlocked that overflow,
Absolutely.
which I thought was really awesome. So, one of the questions I wanted to ask you though is, having said all of that, what role do you think self awareness plays in unlocking this divine overflow sequence?
There's a saying that my husband, I'm just going back to a saying that my husband and I say, you can't be defeated in what you understand.
Mm,
You cannot be defeated in what you understand. And so I think a part of that understanding is really about the self-awareness.
mm-hmm.
It's really about the self-awareness. And so there when you notice that there are things going on in your leadership, it may be, personal leadership, or it may be, with your executive teams or what have you, but you just know that things are just not, they're just off. There's certain things that aren't flowing the way they used to, or you start to notice, like I said, diminishing returns in some sense, or it may be bottlenecks in the company, it may be employee turnover, like dissatisfaction, disgruntlement, whatever the case may be. Burnout is a huge one.
Yes.
All of these things, and I talked about this in a previous podcast. You know, all of these things are warning signs. Really, they're
Yeah.
clues to let you know that you're not in alignment. That's really what it is, that there's a misalignment that has happened. There's a breach of, whatever the covenant is, there's a breach somewhere, in that covenant alignment and agreement that you have to really become aware of. And so whether it be, like I said, on a personal scale where you're having symptoms of high blood pressure, or you may be having symptoms of, heart palpitations or what have you. You notice physical changes in your body. Your mental fog has gotten really, really, it's like really, really crazy, off the charts. Things like that, on a personal scale. But then in the business, again, because it's all about our operating systems,
Mm,
right? Our bodies are our operating systems, internal operating systems, and then we have our businesses that have external operating systems in that. And so we were checking, the health grade, if you will, of our operating systems. And if you notice that there are things that are just not quite right, well, that's when you need to really do a self check and have that self awareness. So, one of the things that I outline in the book, and hopefully people who purchase will see that there are many questions that cause you to kind of pause and think, like, you know, are you doing things in and of your own strength? Like, are you taking on things that God never told you to take on? Are you trying to control everything instead of praying? When's the last time you know, gathered together and had a boardroom prayer meeting, right? Things like that. Um, and so it challenges both on a personal and a professional level to do a self check and see where there may be some areas where you can identify misalignment and
yeah.
go from there. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So when we talk about leadership sustainability,
Hmm.
which, some people may think it looks different depending on context,
Yeah.
but and I'm all about inclusion. So I want to talk a little bit about how does this approach really address some of the unique challenges that people of color, women
Mm.
leaders, underrepresented executives face?
Yes. Yes. That's a great question. I believe that the sustainable CEO is a universal language. I believe that it will touch, and it will sort of give insight to anything, any situation that you may be dealing with, especially in the arena of, you know, um, mistreatment, unfair practices, things like that that we deal with in the workplace. Because the heartbeat of the sustainable CEO is really about compassion. If you think about it.
Hmm.
And compassion is a universal language, right? It's like
We hope.
you being well, it should be, right?
We hope.
Exactly.
Yes.
Not everybody yeah, not everybody speaks that same language, right? But no, it is something that if you think about it, just breaking it all the way down, it's having a level of self-compassion,
Yeah.
and then it's also having a level of compassion for others as well. So if we look at it through that lens, then you will see um, mannerisms, you will see cultural ways that you can culturally like align, no matter
Yeah.
what the cultural differences is, things like that. You'll start to see ways that you can align with the underlying message of it all, which goes back to compassion.
I think a lot of times that's how you end up being more connected, right? Because
Exactly.
you're able to connect on a different level.
Absolutely, your values, your morals, things like that.
Yeah.
Things that we can all agree on and connect together and be sensitive to together. And that's what helps to change the culture, the leadership culture, really, in the organization. And so if you focus on things like that, more of what we have in common, more of the same versus the differences. Then I think that is the way that, well, at least in the book, I believe you'll see a lot of that compassion come through, and that's the way to address even those tough issues in the
Yes.
workplace. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Let's pause for a moment. We'll be right back. you talk a lot about legacy as part of this model. To be clear, so
Yeah.
how do you define legacy, and how can leaders really be intentional about it now,
Yes.
not just later in life? Because, I literally have a book my daughter brought home. It says, I'm dead. Now what? So,
Oh my goodness. What?
but
Wow.
I think it's supposed to like help you prepare for your, like afterwards,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
it but I think, a lot of times people think of legacy and they just realize, and there's like, oh, okay, I'm preparing to die. But
Yeah.
legacy, kind of means so much more than that.
Oh, absolutely. And I believe, one of the ways that we're really addressing legacy is, you know, what do you want to be known for? Like, what is the mantra, if you will? What is the thing that, you want to be most known for? We talk about impact and influence a lot.
Hmm.
And that all ties into legacy and legacy building. Um, how well um, you know, how well you really are as a leader has a lot to do with how well off your company and team thrives without you, if you think about it,
For
you know?
sure. My dad
Yeah.
used to always tell me, he said,
Yeah.
you're always preparing a successor.
There you go.
So it's like, and
Exactly.
and in your own business, if you're not prepared as a successor,
Yes.
then there's really nothing. I mean, the business dies, right?
Exactly.
So
Absolutely.
you're working in your business and not on your business,
Exactly.
as my coach tells me. So
Yes.
uh,
Very
so
much
I
so.
love that. I think, and it's interesting because I even think about it in smaller chunks where,
Mm,
I had this, 30-year career in payment technology.
yeah.
And what's interesting to me is, when you see people who you've interacted with,
Yeah.
it could have been 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
Mhm.
there is a legacy of how they remember you.
There you go. Absolutely.
It's,
Absolutely.
and I never really thought about it that
Mhm.
much, but
Yep.
then you start to go, oh, wow, how could I have changed that
Yes.
relationship? Or maybe it's a good one and,
Yep.
you're excited about it. But, there's so many different ways that, we think about legacy, and we often forget that we're literally leaving a footprint of legacy every single
Exactly.
day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it goes back to, I believe, at the end of it all, because again, the divine overflow sequence is really a blueprint to help you leave your mark, right?
Yes.
It's how you went through, or how you were able to go through and sustain through whatever those hard times and those difficult situations, and the change management issues, and all the risks that you had, like all the things, right, that we go through, but your ability to sustain through that is legacy. That's
So
legacy.
So maybe can you talk a little bit about some of the legacy mistakes you see leaders make,
Oh,
and
wow.
how like maybe we can avoid some of those?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest ones that comes up is the idea, like you said, that they don't plan for a successor. Like they think that they're going to be there forever. And don't prepare the next generation, and we see what happens when there's generations that are ill prepared. Everybody suffers, people suffer because of that, on a large scale and a small scale. It happens. And so I think what I tried to kind of illustrate in the book is that, when you, again, it's all about a continuum.
Right.
Think about, I just keep going back to that. It's all about a continuum. So it should never, like the river should never run dry, right? It's always flowing. And so that business, that company, that legacy, it should always flow. There should be a seamless transition of power. Like everything should just be this continuum of flow. That's really the divine overflow sequence. I look at companies that are in business and have been in business, like 40, 50, 70 years plus, or whatever the case, 100 years. Like how does that happen? if there's not this continual flow, if they haven't been able to sustain through all of the ups and downs and things of life. So it's really about understanding that, again, we own nothing. God is in control of everything. We are here to steward well what He has given us. And as long as we stay in alignment with that, and the divine overflow sequence, that blueprint helps us to basically is the guardrails to keep us in alignment, really.
Hmm.
Then um, we will see alignment, leadership, and legacy continue to play out, like continue to sustain throughout generations.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
any daily or weekly practices that you want to
Mm.
share that maybe you use personally to stay aligned and
Oh my
be
goodness.
from that place of
Absolutely.
overflow?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I'll real quickly just kind of run down this sequence. It's 7 steps. And so, and the first step has to deal with, again, uh posture. And we're talking about a heart posture of surrender, a heart posture of surrender. And with me personally, it is something that I'm constantly doing. I feel a closeness, I feel refreshed, I feel rejuvenated when I'm able to have that time alone with God and reconnect to source, to reconnect to um, you know, um what grounds me and keeps me grounded. And heart posture recently for me, I discovered that there were some things that I was dealing with that probably many people deal with, but go unresolved because you're not aware of it. And so that awareness and self awareness that we were talking about earlier is huge. I was grieving. Um, I was grieving loss and didn't realize that I was grieving loss. I thought there were things that I had long, you know, gotten over, long, dealt with, gotten over those situations or whatever the case. But no, it came up in that time that there was still some unresolved grieving associated with loss that I needed to go in and be healed of and purged of. So that heart posture surrender, it's first and foremost if you're going to talk about alignment and being in alignment with overflow. Um,
Love that.
yeah, and so that's just something that I'm always checking in with myself to do. And so I say to any leader, always check in with yourself and see if there's some unresolved things that may be blocking the flow. Because again, the key is sustainable overflow. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, yeah. The second is really dealing with provision. Provision, we use the word all the time. It's associated with, riches and money and wealth and, resources and just having access and all these things. But what I come to realize about provision is really it's about provision. It's it's a super it's almost like, you have your ideas about, you know, your company and where it's going and, what kind of year you could have and that kind of thing. But then when you have provision, it's really like a magnifying glass. Like you see things crystal clear in detail and it's more than what you thought. That's what I associate with
Okay.
provision. So being open to, well, the company's just done this, we've done this way for this long, whatever. No, be open to, God blowing your mind in business. Think
Yeah.
about that, right? Be open to new relationships and new ventures or whatever the case may be, new partnerships. Be open to those things because you'd be surprised how many businesses are their own worst bottleneck, the leader, because
Yeah,
he's unwilling to be open and change. So yeah.
for sure.
um yeah, so that's and so looking, just being pliable to that.
Hmm.
Again, surrendering control and saying, "You know what? I'm just here managing, so I'm open to new ideas and new strategies and things like that." Um, the third step is really about prophetic instruction. And that's literally, doing whatever that last instruction was, whatever that instruction is that you haven't done yet, making sure you go back and tie up loose ends and do it.
Okay.
But you've got to be able to hear, what that instruction is, and seek wisdom on that, seek wise counsel on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. And so I'm always, again, meeting with my support group, and my husband and I go back and forth a lot with things. I bounce ideas off. So just because you want that wise counsel, and make sure that you're not missing out on any instruction, that
Yeah.
would take you and move you forward. And then after that, you really want to tap into the pattern. There's the Bible is full of patterns. God gives us patterns. It's a rhythm, if you will, of
Mm.
how he flows in and out of seasons. You think about the 4 seasons, there's a time and place for everything. We see the seasons play out. We see the days of the week, we see the months of the year, things like that. Those are all patterns, right? It's all patterns of change and process. And so, but there is a spiritual pattern that you and your company can actually tap into. It's a rhythm of God that will ensure that you meet every season of your business with success, you know. And so you want to
Awesome.
tap into that and learn what that rhythm is for your business. Um, and so yeah, that's really key as well. And something that I try to implement exercise in the book, for a way to do that in the book. Um, and then you look at, your why do you have a platform? What is it really for? Or is it to, boost your ego? Is it to, help you with your likes, your hearts and your likes and things like that, your social influence or what have you? Or is your platform really about a place and a space to release what God has for you, right? To be able to share what God has and what he's saying, using the platform for, the kingdom, and being able to um, push the agenda of the kingdom forward and not your own specific agenda. It's really
Right.
what that's about. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then from that, there is poured out. And you cannot be poured out from an empty cup. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot pour from an empty cup. So that means you have to be filled up before, and really overflowing, which is what you see happening with the sustainable CEO. God revealed to me that many of us in kingdom leadership and business, we are like containers, and containers only have a certain capacity to hold things, right? And God is saying, in the divine overflow, it's really more about not being a container, but being a conduit.
Mm.
Conduit.
Yeah.
We as kingdom faith driven leaders, we are to be conduits in the marketplace, in business. And you think about a conduit is just simply a structure with two open ends to basically guide the flow of something, right? To guide the flow of something. And so if we think about your business, your company as simply a pass through of resources and services and products and goods, your pass through to get to who it's supposed to be for, then you're not so much containing things for yourself. The decisions will be much clearer, right? They'll be
Yes.
much easier. You won't have all these constraints. You won't have all these, the tight fists, closed fists and things like that. You'll be more generous,
Yeah.
things like that, because you realize that you're put here to really flow the resources through like a pass through. And in that way, you can't really have control, right? You don't really have that control because you don't control the conduits. Containers is like capacity limits and things like that can be controlled, but not with a conduit. It's just a continual flow. And so
Yeah.
we in our lives examine our lives both personally and professionally, and see, are we being containers or are we being conduits?
Mm.
Because you can only pour out and through if you're conduit.
Yeah.
And so that's a big one. Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah. I
Um,
love that.
yeah, and then lastly but not least, of course, is praise. praise. When you think about praise, it's the beginning and the end, right? We start in praise and worship and in a surrendered posture of praise and worship, and we end there as well. Praise is definitely it's a weapon of sustainability because with everything going on in the world right now, we could smile, right? Because there's a joy on the inside of
Some
us.
days. Now, some days.
Well, yeah, something right. Exactly. Most days, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it depends on
It's
you.
it is our choice. Yes.
It is. It is. We exactly. We do get the right to choose that, right? That we can go through how we go through. It's everything. What we go through. Some things are out of our hands, but how we choose to experience it and go through it, that is up to us. And so we can go through it with a level of gratitude, servanthood, and joy and peace and those things that come through praise. And so that's the sequence, that is the flow, that's how we sustain. And so and this is again for leaders, it could be for that personal um realignment, if you will, or it could be for your business and company realignment. So it's the sustainable CEO. It is how to sustain in the divine overflow that God desires for all of us to be able to tap into and have.
I feel like you could replace CEO with about anything, like, the sustainable
Exactly.
minister even,
Yeah,
or,
that part.
I
Yeah.
mean,
The
they
sustainable mom, the sustainable,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yes.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
I love that you have, kind of really woven the business angle, because really anytime we're connecting with an organization,
Yes.
a lot of times I feel like people feel like they have to leave their faith at the door.
Yeah.
And it's
Mhm.
so amazing when, as a CEO, you can provide that level of space, that
Yes.
level of, connection to our infinite source, and
Yes.
really listen
Yes.
to what God is telling us. And really, I think, and then it becomes kind of like, are you trusting what he's
Oh,
saying?
oh,
And,
totally.
kind of moving in the direction and the path that he wants you to move.
Totally.
So,
Totally. That's
yeah.
really what it's about, because and we have work to do. Um and how we go about it, especially for the faith-driven, business and CEO and entrepreneur is it's different. It's different. We have vantage points and advantages and things that that if we knew how to really, like you said, weave them into our work life, then we would see, prosperity on a whole new level. We really would. And I think that's kind of like what God's heart is about, in writing the sustainable CEO is really he's intentional about us understanding that there's so much more that we can be managing and should be managing, but we have to align and get ourselves, and our businesses back in alignment with the divine plan that he has.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. What a
Mhm.
great way to wrap it up. But
Yeah.
I do want to make sure that our listeners know how to connect with you, learn more about your work, get a
Yes.
copy of your book.
Yes. Yes.
Please let us know how to do that.
Okay, thank you. Well, I will say I'm actually going through a rebrand right now, with my company. But if you want, I will. They can always reach out to me. They can email me. They can at contact@benitawilliams.com. That's contact@benitawilliams.com. And I would love to provide a link that you can post to this episode, and that way they can obtain a copy of the book.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Would love to do that.
Perfect, perfect.
Yes. Well, and everybody, like, definitely reach out to Benita Williams. She has lots more to say, I know. But it's been such a pleasure to know you, because I mean, it was, I don't even know it, I think you reached out to me first,
Yes.
And we have just been fast friends ever since.
Yes,
So,
we have. We
um,
really have. Divine, right? That's
yes.
Divine
So
connection.
I have just really enjoyed it and look forward to, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be another book coming out.
Yeah. I'm
But
sure I am working on a training series, a series of trainings because it's a lot to unpack. Like I said, there's so much more to unpack. And so I'm gonna be releasing a series of trainings and stuff like that just to kind of, keep the
nice.
sustainable CEO flowing. Yeah.
Yes. Well, keep us posted. Come back and talk to us again. And
Always.
blessings to you, wishing you all the best as you continue to move forward. And, I'm these days, I'm all about more business and more life. And the
Yes.
sustainable CEO is definitely on my list. I enjoyed reading it
Awesome.
and really hear, kind of because it's one of those reads that's not uh um it's not like a traditional read. There's so
Hmm.
many different things in there where you can almost pick it up in any chapter.
Any chat,
And,
right?
you
Exactly.
know,
Go back to it as a reference,
yes.
material. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, you've written it in such a way that it's like, wow, you can really, pass it out to people, give it as a gift for
Yeah,
the holidays, you can do all sorts of things. So,
absolutely. I believe it would truly bless not just your personal, but also your business life, your friends and family, but also your partners, your business partners, and teams as well. So, yeah.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for stopping by
A
and
pleasure again.
talking
Thank
about it.
you.
And hopefully, folks will pick it up and check it
Thank
out.
you. Thank you so much,
And
Melissa.
yes, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Same here, sister. Thank you so much again.
All right. Take
Always a
care.
joy. All right, you too.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks for joining me on the Jali Podcast. Please subscribe so you won't miss an episode. See you next week.